Today we're going to be talking about estimation, rounding, and limits of accuracy. Okay, so these are the important methods we use in mostly in engineering and other estimations. Okay, so by end of this lesson, you're going to be able to understand what is estimation and rounding. Then you're going to be able to round numbers to the nearest 110 and 1000. Okay, then you're going to be able to round to decimal places. You're going to be round to the nearest significant figures, and you are going to be applying estimation and rounding in real world problems. Then you are going to be able to explain and calculate the limits of accuracy for rounded numbers. Okay? So for these numbers we rounded, you're going to be able to see what are the limits of accuracy. Okay. Then you're going to be apply the real life measurements and estimation problems. Okay. So we're going to be doing that. Now let's talk about the introduction to estimation and rounding. Okay, so we're going to be seeing what is rounding. Okay, rounding is a way of simplifying a number while keeping its value close to what it was. Okay, so if you're given a value which is a way to simplify it so that it can be closer to what it was. Okay, let's say you have a number which is 401. Okay, so this one, if you keep this number, you can round it as 400. Okay, so this is what is rounding. Okay, it's a way of keeping a number as close to the original so that it will be simpler. It is easier to use 400 than 401. Okay, so you can estimate that 401 is equals to 400. Okay, the other number is let's say you have a 498. Okay, so you can simply round this number as a 500. Okay, which is easier to use than this. Okay, so that is rounding. Okay, let's say you have another number like 452. Okay, so this one is it's not easy to use this number, but it is easier to use. You can round it to become 450. Okay, so this is what is rounding. It is simplifying the number while keeping it closer to what it should be. Okay, so we are changing this number to what it should be. Okay, so we are going to see how do we do that in simple ways. Okay, so let's talk about what is estimation. Estimation means finding an approximate answer. Okay, so estimation means that you are just finding an answer which is closer to the answer. Okay, so let's say you are being told to count something. Okay, then you counted until, let's say you counted until 4020. Okay, so you know that there are only 5 or 6 or 7 things left. Okay, so you can simply say that I've counted things to be 400. Okay, so that is meant by approximate. You're just finding an approximate to the number. Now let's talk about the rules of rounding. Okay, so the rules of rounding. Let's start with rounding to the nearest 10, 100, or 1000. Okay, so the thing is, you have to look at the digits to the right of the place you are rounding to, and then if it's 5 or more, you have to round up, and if it's 4 or less, you have to round down. Okay, let's start with example. Let's say I'm given a number 16. Asked to round to the nearest 10. Okay, to the nearest 10. Okay, so now your duty is to make sure you have to find which digit are you rounding to. Okay, so this is the units and this is the 10. Okay, so we are just rounding here, right? So now you have to look the number to the right here. If it's 5 or more, you have to round up, or if it's 4 or less, you have to round down. Okay, so 6 is 5 or more, so you have to round up. This means that you are rounding up. This means that this one becomes 2. Okay, so your answer becomes 20. Okay, so this is what is rounding up. Okay, let's say you are given another number. Let's be our B example. Let's say you have a 135. Okay, so here you are being asked to round to the nearest 10. Okay, okay, you look at the 10. This is the units 10. Okay, so here you just have to look to the right. Okay, this one is 5 or more. This means that you are rounding up. Okay, so your answer becomes 140. Okay, so this is how you round it. Okay, let's say you are given a number like 198. Okay, you are being asked to round to the nearest 10. Okay, so the easy way, you just have to look at this number because these are units, these are tens. Okay, so you are going to look here and find this number is 5 or more. Okay, so this means that you have to round up. Okay, but here we have 9. Okay, so this means that if we add 1 to 9, it's going to become 10. Okay, So this means that you just have to add another 1 here, then it becomes 2. Okay, so this means that you're adding 1 here, it becomes 10. Then when it becomes 10, you're adding another 1 here, this becomes 2. Okay, so the answer becomes 200. Okay, this is how we are rounding. Okay, okay, let's say you are given this number. Okay, you are being asked to round to the nearest 1000. Okay, so you're going to check here on the 1000. Okay, so this is units, tens, hundred, 1000. Okay, so you're going to check this number. If it is 5 or more, or 4 or less. Okay, this number is 4 or less. This means that we are going to be rounding down. Okay, so this means that from this number to all these numbers, we are going to put zeros. Okay, so this means that your answer becomes 10,000. Okay, easiest that. Okay, so let's do another example with hundreds. Okay, so let's say you have a number which is 348. Okay, so you're being asked to round to the nearest hundred. Okay, so here you're saying 10 units, tens, hundred. Okay, so when you are at 100, you have to check this number if 5 or more or 4 or less. This one is 4 or less, so this means that you are rounding down. Okay, so in rounding down, there's nothing to add. You're just going to change this number and this number to 0. Okay, the number to the left or all the numbers to the right, you're going to change them to be zeros. Okay, so the answer becomes 300. Okay, so this is how we round to the nearest 10, nearest 100, and nearest 1000. Let's go to our next example, which is rounding to decimal places. Okay, here when rounding to decimal places, we are counting numbers from the decimal place. Okay, let's say you are given this number, an example, 3,746. Okay, so what you do is, let's say you are being asked to round to 2 decimal places. Okay, here you are counting numbers from the comma. Okay, so which means that you are, in this case, you are counting 2. Okay, so this means you are counting 1, 2. Okay, so this is the number we are going to be rounding to. Okay, so you are going to check to the right of that number. You are going to check to the right of that number. Okay, if this number is 5 or more, you round up, and if it's 4 or less, you round up, round down. Okay, so in this case, you see that it's a this number is 5 or more. Okay, so this means that you are going to round up. Okay, so you're just going to add 1 here. So this means that our answer becomes 3.75. Okay, if it is after the comma, you don't write a 0 here, but if it's before the comma, you round 0. Okay, so this is our first rounding to the nearest 2 decimal places. Okay, let's say you are given a number like 0.004. You are being asked to round to 2 decimal places. Okay, you are being asked to round to 2 decimal places. Okay, you are counting from here. You are saying 1, 2. Then this is the number you are checking, and you are going to check to the right of it. This number is 4 or less. This means that you have to round down. Okay, so our answer here is going to become 0. Okay, so but because it's 2 decimal places, you're going to be writing like 0.00. Okay, so you have to make sure when you round to 2 decimal places, after the decimal places, you have to write all the zeros. 2 zeros. Okay, let's say you're given another number 2.4. Okay, you are being asked to round to 3 decimal places. Okay, you can see that number, this number, it does not have 3 decimal places. Okay, so what you do is you count from here 1, you add zeros until it's 3. Okay, so it's 1, 2, 3. Okay, so here you are checking here the answer is supposed to be 0 because it's after the comma. Okay, so you are checking here. This means that you are rounding down. Okay, so you just have to write this one. Okay, so you write 2.400. Okay, you just have to make sure when you ask to round to 3 decimal places, they should put 3 decimal places after the comma. When you ask to round to 2 decimal places, there should be 2 decimal places after the comma. Okay, now let's talk about rounding to significant figures. Okay, so it is represented by SF. Okay, so when you see that it is SF, it means that significant figures. Okay, so okay, significant figures we count from the first non-zero digit. Okay, so when you count from the first non-zero digit, and when you reach our number, then we do our rounding there. Okay, so let's say you're given a number which is 3457. Okay, so you are being asked to round to G to S to 3SF. Okay, so this means that 3 significant figures. Okay, so if you are asked to round to 3SF, you have to count from the first number 1, 2, 3. So when you reach 3 here, this is where you are going to round. Okay, so you're going to check this number. Is it greater than 5? Is it 5 or more, or 4 or less? Okay, this means that In this case, we have it is 5 or more. Okay, so this means that we are adding 1 to this one. Okay, so this means that our answer becomes 3460. Okay, so this will be our rounding. Okay, so when there is no comma in between, this 0 is important. It should be written. Okay, so this is what we do. So let's say you're given a number 0.0024. Okay, you are being asked to round this one to 1 SF. Okay, so what you do is you count from the first non-zero digit. Okay, so this non-zero digit, this is a 0 digit, we don't count, we don't count, we don't count. Then when we reach here, we count 1. Okay, so this is 1 SF. Okay, so we're going to be rounding from here. This means that we're going to check this one, if it is 4 or less or 5 or more. Okay, this one is 4 or less, this is that we are not adding, so this means that we are saying 0.002. Okay, since this is the 0 after the comma, we don't write it. Okay, so our answer becomes 0.002. Okay, let's say you're given another number, which is 99.98. Okay, so you're being asked to write to 3 SF. Okay, 3 significant figures. Okay, so you're going to count from the first non-zero digit. Okay, so here you see that it is 9, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so here is where we are going to round. Okay, so we're going to check this number. If this number is 5 or more or 4 or less, okay, this is 5 or more. This means that we're going to be adding 1 here. Okay, so if we add 1 here, we're going to get 10. Okay, now if we get 10, we should add 1 here again. So we get 10 again, we should add 1 here again. Okay, then if we get, we're going to get 10 until we add 1 here. Okay, so this means that it's going to be 1 here, then all these numbers are going to be 0. Okay, so let's say it's 1 for here, then 0, 0.00. Okay, so to write these numbers, we have these zeros. Okay, we just make sure you have three significant figures. Here we have 1, 2, 3. Okay, so this means that we can simply write it as 100. Okay, so this is be our answer. It has 3 significant figures.